In this recording, we're going to assess sociological explanations of the functions and forms of punishment of offenders. So punishment involves deliberately inflicting harm, and there are two main justifications that have been offered for this, and that's reduction and retribution. These justifications lead to different penal policies. So one justification is reduction, and this is when you punish offenders to prevent them from committing future offences. One type of reduction is deterrence, which is when you prevent people from having harsh punishment. Right realists believe that punishing the individual so that they don't offend is the best way to prevent crime. You can use the example of Thatcher's short, sharp shock regime in young offenders' institutions to demonstrate this. Another type of reduction is rehabilitation, which is to prevent people from re-offending. And this has been put forward by the Social Democrats, who argue that punishment can be used to reform offenders so that they no longer offend, and you can do this by providing education for prisoners so that they are more able to earn an honest living when on release. And the third type of reduction is incapacitation, which is prevent people by removing the capacity to offend again. Now, the second justification of punishment is retribution, which is when the criminal has to pay back for what they did. And people believe that offenders deserve to be punished, and so its society is entitled to take revenge on the offender. Functionalists argue that to bring back shared social solidarity, punishment is needed because the outrage people will feel about crime will reinforce shared values. Durkheim believed that in traditional society, retributive punishment was used in order to give an immediate form of justice. However, in modern society, restorative punishment is used so that the criminal makes up for their crimes and apologises to the victim. However, the problem with functionalists is that traditional societies often have restorative rather than retributive justice. For example, in Saudi Arabia, they use savage punishments like cutting off people's hands, but they also use restorative justice, and such as it's possible to get off execution by paying the family. And also, you could argue that punishment doesn't bring people back together because it could just isolate victims. So Marxists believe that forms of punishment are repressive state apparatus designed to maintain social order by reflecting the ruling class's interests. For example, Thompson in the 18th century believed that punishments such as hanging and transportation to the colonies for theft and poaching were part of the rule of terror by the landed as aristocracy over the poor. Also, Mel Ossi and Parvini believe that imprisonment reflects capitalist relations on production. Capitalism puts a price on the workers' time, so prisoners have to pay for their crimes through time. Also, prison and the capitalist factory both have similar disciplinary style involving subordination and loss of liberty. However, Thompson's view doesn't fit with modern day society, and Marxists forget that communist countries also have severe punishments, such as Stalin's harsh punishments for anyone who acted against the state. So postmodernists like Foucault believe that punishments have changed from sovereign power in pre-modern society, as it acted as a way for the monarch to exercise power over offenders' body to show what crime would do. For example, the death punishment and lashes. Punishment has changed to disciplinary power, which is a way for the body and mind to be controlled. For example, the panopticon. For example, in prison, the panopticon was designed for a prison in which all the prisoners' cells were visible to all the guards, but the guards were not visible to the prisoners. This meant that the prison began to subject individuals to disciplinary power and induce conformity through self-surveillance. However, The shift from corporal punishment to imprisonment is less clear than he suggests, as many advanced countries still have prisons and corporal punishment. Also, he neglects expressive aspects of punishment, and Goffman argues that he has exaggerated the extent of control. For example, inmates are able to restrict controls in institutions such as prisons and mental hospitals. In terms of the types of punishment, in pre-industrial Europe, they had a wide range of punishments such as fines or execution, and prison was mainly used for holding offenders prison prior to punishment. However, now imprisonment is seen as the punishment itself, and since the 1980s there has been a move towards populist punitiveness, and politicians call for tougher sentences, leading to a rising prison population. Garland believes that the USA and to an extent the UK are moving into an era of mass incarnation. For example, in the USA, 3% of the adult population have some form of juvenile restriction on their liberty. There is also a trend towards transcarnation, which is moving people between different prison-like institutions. For example, if you're brought from care, then a young offender institution, and then adult prison. There are also more alternatives to prison because there has been a growth in a range of community-based controls, such as curfews, community service orders, and tagging. However, Stanley Cohen believes that this simply has cast a net of controls over more people. Rather than diverting young people away from the criminal justice system, community controls may divert them to it. So in conclusion, some have argued that punishment just isn't hard enough, as 2/3 of offenders re-offend after prison.